And now back to Urban America Today.
Welcome back. We are here and we have a special guest today, Yahrah St. John,
Yay.
author extraordinaire,
Yay.
writer du jour, as I said when we were going out to break the first time. And right now we're going to just kind of talk about, you have a new book out. We're going to get into that a little bit later, Yahrah.
Great.
But most people who go to Barnes & Noble, go to Borders, they all sit back and say, God, I wish I could write a book. Or, God, how did they do that? So start off telling us a little bit about how you got to the point where you had 7 published novels.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I originally started out writing when I was 12 years old, just writing in spiral notebooks, handwritten, And then I went on to go to Northwestern and major in English with a minor in creative writing.
All right.
And then didn't do anything with it for a good 4 or 5 years after graduation.
Okay.
And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I went to a writer's conference and I met another author, and I told her I love to write, and she's like, well, what are you waiting for?
Kind of put some pressure on you.
Exactly.
Right.
She's like, well, if you can write, then try to finish a full-length book.
Wow.
So a year later, I accomplished it.
Wow.
I went out, bought my first laptop, wrote out an outline and a synopsis, and just banged. It took me about 9 months to write that first book. But
wow. What made you want to do romance novels? I mean, of course, we all want to be in love and have someone to care about us and things like that. But why that? Why that?
I had always loved romance. Even when I was a teenager, I loved to read, and so I always read the Danielle Steeles, the steamy Harlequins, and the ones, the historicals with Fabio on the cover.
Of course.
And my thing is that you didn't see any African Americans on the cover.
True.
So when we started in 1994-95, when Kensington Publishing started publishing African American romance novels, I was like, oh my God, now to see our faces on the covers, it was really great after all those years.
Did you feel like you couldn't do it? I mean, for example, to write a book, and it's one thing to get the laptop and then be dedicated and do 9 months of it, but did you ever feel like there was any obstacle, like, what if they don't like my writing? What if did you get butterflies about that at all?
I did. Sometimes when you just look at the blank page, it seems a little daunting,
right,
to keep writing, but I just had to push through those fears,
right,
and just believe in myself. I know I could do it. I knew I had a gift, even when I was 12. So I just kind of pushed through those fears and just kept hammering it out, and finally finished the book. 75,000 words was that first book.
75,000 words.
75,000 words. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, how did you know it was ready to send out? Because the first obstacle was getting it completed.
Right.
Okay, that's hard enough. But you got it done. Now it's like, okay, what do I do now?
Well, interesting enough, I had my mom at the time. She was an avid reader, and she read it, and then she told me to cut the first 50 pages.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's hard.
My mom told me to cut the first 50. And I took her advice. I cut the first 50, revised it again, and then when I went to that writer's conference the next year, I was able to meet with an editor.
Right.
And they read those first 50 pages and loved it. But it was the first I'd cut 50.
Now, were you nervous? I'm trying to picture me getting my mother or my father to read a romance novel with physical scenes and
we read our
things.
Stuff and it's detailed.
Yeah, yes, quite.
She breaks it down.
Okay.
So your mom,
Yeah, my mom was an avid reader. She loved romance as well, so I felt comfortable. Her and I had always been best friends, so I felt comfortable having her read it.
Nice.
I actually wasn't embarrassed.
Wow.
So, and I valued her advice. So her telling me to cut those first 50 pages, it helped sell my book.
Okay, wow.
Well,
So my question is this. I'm going to give you this later. You went to a workshop. You did the work to make this happen. And what do you find when you meet other writers who have not gotten to where you are? What do you find is their biggest obstacle or their biggest problem?
Making the time.
Okay.
Making the time for it. I think a lot of people say they can write, but you really have to devote and say, hey, I'm going to write 2 hours a day, 4 hours a day, and stick to it, no matter what happens.
Gotcha.
So having that kind of dedication, and then also having a really great outline. You have to know where your story is going.
Gotcha.
And that's helpful for me. Some people can write it without an outline. For me, I find, and especially I think for a new author, knowing where you're going to go with the book would be very helpful.
Young writers and writers who are established like yourself, from Stephen King, from everywhere, mentioning writer's block, is that real?
It is real. Sometimes it happens, Sometimes after I finish a book, you know, I'm just brain dead, and I don't have anything left. I've kind of given it all to that book, and I felt like I've given birth. So I do. I usually have a little bit of writer's block right after that.
Right.
So I usually have to take a couple of months off before I try to start a new book.
Wow, that's good.
Describe the feeling when you first saw. I mean, I know you get your contract, you know what's going to happen,
Right.
you've already gotten your advance, so you're happy about that. But when you first see that printed page, cover and everything.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. I just went to the bookstore, me and my mom, and we were taking pictures and we were telling people, that's my book, that's my book. So yeah, it was a great sense of accomplishment to see your work there in print.
Because that's major, because Yahrah and I, of course, went to your book signing over the weekend, and you were in Barnes and Noble. That's crazy. I mean, that's amazing. But you're not in just a bookstore. You are in the bookstore.
Yes.
That's in every state, in every country, all over the world, and you are in there. And that's just, you know, our hats off to you.
Thank
and
you.
it's just an accomplishment to do that, because that's millions are reading your book, and millions are reading your stories and your characters. And
Yes.
and speaking of characters, are they based on real people?
Some of them.
Loosely based?
Loosely.
Okay.
Loosely.
Loosely.
All right.
So you don't
Loosely
have
based.
any dreadlock characters at all, do you?
I think, and my sixth book might be a dreadlock. This time for real, so.
Now, have people ever said, you know, yeah, that character sounds somewhat like me? Do you say, you know what, that's just, you know, my creative genes?
Exactly, I do.
Right.
I never give anything away.
Good. That's awesome. That's amazing. Because I read, of course, in the next segment, we'll get into the book that you've actually done, things like that. But it's just amazing to have all these characters that come to life, and a book signing is just wonderful.
Thank
Really,
you.
really,
Thank
really
you.
is.
How has, you know, you did the first book, now you've had 7
Yeah.
come out, right? So it's not like it was a fluke. They keep coming out.
Right.
What do you see, not like, what has it been able to do for you?
I find that it's allowed me to be more financially stable. So I bought my first house thanks to my book writing.
All right, okay.
So yeah, it's definitely helped me. I love to travel, so I'm able to go overseas, and I have a new trip coming up in Greece next year. So yeah, writing has been very good to me.
You know, taking me on your trip to Greece would probably be great for another book. You know, I'm like a great character. I really, really would. We should talk about that
all
during
my
the break.
characters usually need a sidekick, so you know, you could be the sidekick in the next book.
There we go. Do you find that most writers today are going into romance? Are they going into suspense? Are they going into different areas? Where are most writers today going?
It's interesting that the romance is kind of branching out into all these subgenres. Paranormal is huge right now.
Yes.
Paranormal because of the Twilights and so forth. True Blood is just taking on a whole life of its own. So paranormal and actually erotica seems to be a really expanding market in the romance genre.
In her craziness.
It is thanks to Zane that market blew up the way it did, you know.
And most
she put it on the map.
American. Most people didn't know that, but she is.
But she is, so,
that's
you
amazing.
know, she put it on the map. So those two markets seem to be really, really thriving right now.
When we get back, we're going to get into the latest book by Yahrah St. John. Stay tuned.